Bienvenidos hermanos y hermanas, Namaste, a este programa muy especial de su canal Espiritualidad y Vedanta en español. Hoy tenemos un gran invitado de honor. Es un placer para mí presentarles hoy a Swami Tadatmananda Saraswati, un gran maestro de Adwaita Vedanta tradicional, muy querido por mí porque además en los últimos años ha sido una guía espiritual, prácticamente ha sido un gurú para mí. Y sé que para muchos de ustedes también, así que estoy muy contento y muy agradecido que esté hoy con nosotros el gran maestro Swami Tadatmananda. Swamiji, welcome to our channel Espiritualidad y Vedanta en español. It's a great honor to here with us, please.
Namaste, Swamiji. It's a great pleasure to join you. Again, I want to congratulate you on the work you're doing to present the teachings of Adwaita Vedanta to your Spanish-speaking community. Very good.
Thank you. You know, we are a community and grow community of Spanish-speaking seekers, and it's a great pleasure. Today I have three questions for you. One is about the pillars of yoga according to Sri Krishna on the Bhagavad Gita, and two is on the Adwaita Vedanta, like wisdom or knowledge that help us to liberation of suffering, and the importance, of course, of meditation in our process, in a sadhana, daily sadhana. Yeah, well, let's begin. I am a big fan of your videos and courses, of course, and I am continue study the course of Bhagavad Gita that you.
Very good.
Yeah, I continue studying, and it's curious in the course that Sri Krishna talk about the pillars of yoga. And say about the jnana and karma and raya and bhakti, and therefore always say that one is more important than other, and you yourself always clarifying that the four pillars are the important at the same time. You know, can you tell us about this, please?
Yes, and you very nicely point out a common confusion for people who first studied the Bhagavad Gita, and that is sometimes Swamiji, sometimes Sri Krishna says that jnana, spiritual knowledge, is the best. In other places, he says that bhakti, devotion, is the best spiritual practice. Elsewhere, he'll say that dhyana, meditation, is the best spiritual practice. And of course, that karma yoga is the best spiritual practice. To understand this, there are several things that need to be understood. First of all, the style of the Bhagavad Gita. The Bhagavad Gita, as you and many of your students know, is a small part of the Mahabharata. The Mahabharata is wonderful work of literature, Sanskrit literature. In fact, it is the world's longest poem, the poem that has 86,000 verses. And the Bhagavad Gita is a small 700-verse excerpt from that Mahabharata. So whenever we study the Bhagavad Gita, we can't forget its context in the Mahabharata, and that is its literature. And one very common literary style. You also know that the Mahabharata is attributed to the Rishi Vyasa, who authored it. And so Vyasa is recording the dialogue that he heard in his mind, the dialogue between Sri Krishna and Arjuna. So it's not a literal transcript of what Sri Krishna and Arjuna discussed, but it's really the words or teachings of Vyasa, and composed in a very beautiful way. Well, one of the a particular feature of literature is using various kinds of literary devices. Literary devices like there's a fancy word called hyperbole. Hyperbole means intentional exaggeration. So this is done all the time in literature, not just in literature, in advertising. Every advertiser will say that their product is the best. It's not the best, but hyperbole is a way of promoting their product. So that literary figure called hyperbole is often used, not just in the Bhagavad Gita, but everywhere else. So when Sri Krishna is teaching, let me be more specific now. In chapter 2, when Sri Krishna is introducing jnana, spiritual wisdom, he will refer to this spiritual wisdom as being the primary way of gaining moksha. He will praise it, and I don't think he uses these exact words, but the impression you might get, having studied chapter 2, is that jnana is the best spiritual practice. Well, that is an example of hyperbole, because the subject matter of chapter 2 is spiritual knowledge. The word Sankhya, which is the Sanskrit name for the chapter, means spiritual wisdom. Similarly, in chapter 3, when he starts to teach karma yoga, he'll say karma yoga is best in chapter 3. Again, that's hyperbole. In chapter 6, he teaches dhyana. He'll say it's the best. What am I leaving out? Bhakti. In chapter 12, he will teach bhakti. He'll say it's the best. So anyway, the fact that he says each one of them is the best is a literary device, and we need to understand it as such. What's really far more important is to dismiss a common misunderstanding. And a common misunderstanding about these 4 yogas, these 4 spiritual practices, is that you get to pick one. And it's said by some people in modern times that for intellectual people, they should choose jnana yoga. For active extrovert people, they should choose karma yoga. For introvert, quiet people, they should choose dhyana, meditation. And for very devotional people, they should choose the path of bhakti. Sri Krishna never implies that throughout the Bhagavad Gita, and no traditional teacher would ever say that. Like Shankaracharya would never say that. Any traditional teacher of Adwaita Vedanta will point out the obvious, at least I think it's obvious. All 4 of these are required. You can't choose one and ignore the others. We need them all. The fact is, we need all the help we can get. How could we possibly afford to ignore any of them? So if somebody is guided by this modern misconception about Adwaita Vedanta, that you can choose your path, choose one of the 4, there's no question that people will have preferences. But the fact is, we need all 4. Your own personal spiritual practice might emphasize one more than the other, and that's fine, of course. But to choose one and ignore the other 3 would be foolish.
Yeah, sure. It's important to practice the 4 at the same time.
Yes, to practice all 4. Not at the same physical time, but every day, all 4. Yes.
Thank you so much, Swamiji. The second point on this interview is it's about Adwaita Vedanta, which is you are a great master of communication. And
more than that, I've been properly trained. I think many teachers of Vedanta haven't had the opportunity to study in a very traditional way under a traditional teacher. I was fortunate to study for many years under my guru, Puja Swami Tadatmananda, who made us learn Sanskrit so that we could study all the scriptures in the original language and under his guidance. So it's not just being a good communicator, but really having that traditional teaching.
Yeah, these teachings in a native language is a brilliant form of understanding the true knowledge. Well, it's simple. Advaita Vedanta like a way, a path of liberation of suffering in this life and break out of so-called wheel of samsara for all of us. Yeah, my question is the role of Advaita Vedanta in the process of liberation of suffering.
Good. That is a really important question because many people have a lot of funny concepts about what it is to become enlightened. And I don't want to even get started on that topic because we won't get to your question. So let me begin by saying, actually, you said something earlier in your introduction, which I really liked. And that was, you said Vedanta was for the sake of liberation from suffering. That's absolutely correct. And I was really happy to hear you use that expression because it shows a correct understanding of what these teachings of Advaita Vedanta are. So many people get the impression that it's some kind of, in fact, they call it non-dual philosophy. And that really is a huge blunder. It's a huge error because philosophy is abstract conceptual pursuit of knowledge for its own sake. Vedanta, Advaita Vedanta, is not a philosophy because the goal of Vedanta is not knowledge. The goal of philosophy, knowledge. The goal of Vedanta, as you nicely said, liberation from suffering. And then we have to get into an analysis of what is the cause of that suffering, what is the solution to that suffering. Of course, that really is the whole teaching of Advaita Vedanta. So let me give it to you as briefly and simply as I can. Almost, I'm sure all your students and followers have heard that according to the rishis, the sages of ancient India, an inner divinity dwells in each person. The nature of every person is innately divine. Divine by birth, there's an inner divinity, but it turns out that inner divinity goes unrecognized. People can believe that their true nature is divine, but to believe that your true nature is divine is not the same as personally recognizing that inner divinity. And according to the teachings of Vedanta, the ultimate cause, and this is an analysis which we're going to keep short right now or become a 1-hour discussion, but Vedanta shows very clearly that the ultimate source of suffering is unfulfilled desires that arise because of the failure to recognize one's own true divine nature. In Sanskrit, we call Atma. So that failure to recognize your true nature as Atma is the root cause of suffering. My guru called it, in English, self-non-recognition. Nice expression, self-non-recognition. So failing to recognize your innate divinity, you'll naturally feel incomplete, inadequate, wanting, needy, dependent on so many people and things, and it leads to a life of craving, a life of unfulfilled desires, and a life of suffering. So the solution to the problem of suffering, then, is recognizing your true nature as Atma. That Atma happens to be identical to Brahman and only one, and that leads us to Advaita. So to recognize the non-dual truth of yourself is the solution to the problem of suffering, according to the ancient rishis.
Yeah, and what you suggest to the beginners and in our community are many people that they are in a few traditions, non-dualities, and they want to begin the spiritual path of Adwaita Vedanta. For what way, for what literature or course you recommend to these beginners?
Allow me to start with what I don't recommend. And as a young spiritual student, I made the same mistake everyone else makes, and that is you start reading books. And there are so many books, I'm sorry to say, filled with nonsense, that reading all of these books can actually cause more harm than good. And it's really unfortunate. And the problem is when we're at beginners, we're not able to discern which books we should read and which books we should avoid. So it's a very tricky, delicate situation at the beginning. What I think is best is to find a person, a teacher, and nowadays that we have the internet, it's so much easier. You don't have to live in India or live in the same city as a teacher, but to find a teacher that you relate to, there's another part to that. Not only a teacher that you relate to, but a teacher who has himself or herself been properly taught. There are, this is the other problem. So books are one problem, internet is another problem. People like you and me are on YouTube, and here I think the teachings provided by you and I are perhaps helpful, but the sad truth is the teachings provided by many others are not so helpful. So for beginners, it's difficult, but it requires somehow to be really discerning, very careful, cautious of who you choose to study from. And some of it is common sense. If the person is obviously out for getting money or out for getting fame, if you detect any of that, then run away. But more than that, to find, and because this is my background, I feel this very strongly. It's important to find a teacher who has had the benefit of a traditional teaching. And to me, a traditional teaching is one that goes back. My tradition is Adwaita Vedanta. It's a tradition of Shankaracharya. It's a tradition of the great rishis of ancient India before Shankaracharya. So for me, a proper teacher would be one in that lineage, someone who has studied in a traditional way the teachings of the ancient rishis, the teachings of Shankara, and from a modern teacher who has taught all of that material properly. That you can kind of figure out. You can kind of find out who is your teacher's teacher. And I think that is often very important.
It's very important the teacher who explained this knowledge, because that they say manana, shravana, and nididhyasana in the process.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Sure. Well, thank you, Swamiji, for these answers. It's very important to us, and I think that it's concerned too about the karma of each of one of us.
Yes.
I'm sorry.
No,
Yeah.
I'm glad that our karma has brought us together. That's very nice.
Yeah, sure.
Also, if you'd allow me to say, just to extend on what we just discussed, for your students and followers, I looked at your website, and you have a lot of very helpful resources on videos on your website. So that is excellent.
Thank you.
For the Spanish-speaking community, many of my videos have Spanish subtitles. I think the YouTube also auto-generates subtitles, but when you have so many Sanskrit words, I don't think YouTube can.
It's a mess.
Yeah, it's a mess. You're correctly. So for that reason, not all of my videos, I think all of the videos that are produced in our studio have Spanish subtitles. So I would invite your students and followers to include that as a resource. You can just look up my name, Tadatmananda, on YouTube. Also, I mentioned before that one of my students, very devoted, like you are, and very intense, has created a website based on my teachings, and that website may also be of help or interest to your students. She calls the title of the link to that website is vedantanodual.org. vedantanodual.org. So that's another resource.
Yeah.
These are solid resources.
This link is in the description right now.
Thank you so much. I'm grateful for you doing that. And I just want to let me conclude this by saying these teachings are so wonderful and powerful. It's a shame when a student gets misdirected to some videos or teachers and things which are unhelpful. You know, inauthentic is one issue, but the bottom line is if many of these teachings don't help you, they're defective in many ways. Anyway, it's up to the student to be very discerning, and that's a challenge. It's a big challenge.
Yeah. Thank you so much for this invitation. I visit this website, and it's in Spanish, and it's very nice, a great job, and the subtitles of your videos are very, very good. I use them so many times when I dub in the videos. You know,
Good.
Let
me interrupt you. I'm really happy that you're dubbing so many videos of mine.
Recently, I dubbed the Sunday you talk about one video in your satsang, The Secret of Karma Yoga.
Yeah.
And I dubbed it right yesterday.
Very good.
And I share tomorrow.
Very good. That's an important video. I'm glad you dubbed that. And I know that many Spanish-speaking people prefer the dubbing, and you do a very nice job. So I'm glad.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Do more and more of that.
Yeah. Thank you so much for your words, Swamiji. Hey.
Nice, very nice to join you. I wish you all the best for your ongoing teachings.
Are the third topic on today?
Oh, I'm sorry.
Yeah. It's important. It's very important. It's very important. It's about a topic very important to us, to me in particular. You know that I dub in your course on meditation on 42 lessons. It's a huge
short lesson.
Short lesson. But it's 42. It's a huge work that you do to the students of the spiritual growth, and I dub into Spanish, but I see that the users don't visit so often than another videos, and I want to explain to us the importance, the very transcendental importance of meditation in a spiritual growth, please.
Yeah. You're making a good point, and that is many people are enthusiastic about hearing the teachings of Adwaita Vedanta, but when it comes down to the personal practice, there might be some, not reluctance, but maybe some, I don't know, laziness.
I say run away of this practice.
Yeah. The fact is, people have busy lives, and we both appreciate it. Here's the issue. Merely listening to spiritual teachings or watching videos like this video is helpful, but it's not enough. The ultimate goal of Adwaita Vedanta, as I said before, that removing that self non-recognition, kind of fancy language, but in simple terms, it means to recognize your true nature. To recognize your true nature is something you have to do. No one can do it for you. No teacher can do it for you. You can't do it for your students. I can't do it for my students. It's not possible. The individual person has to be engaged in a process of self-inquiry, looking within oneself, for the sake of eventually making that discovery. That discovery is made within yourself, in your mind, in your experience, in your heart, however you like to express it, but it's made through looking within, self-inquiry. The Sanskrit term is important here, Atma Vichara. Vichara means inquiry. Inquiry here into the Atma, the true self, the truth of who you are. For doing that Atma Vichara, that process of self-inquiry, it's crucial for the mind to be trained for that process of self-inquiry. If the mind isn't ready, if the mind isn't quiet, if the mind isn't focused, if the mind isn't capable of handling these very subtle subject matters, that process of self-inquiry will never be successful. Meditation is crucial to train the mind for the sake of that process of self-inquiry. Let me make this point a little bit more clear. The teachings of Adwaita Vedanta are less like a philosophy book and more like a road map. And let me explain what that means. A philosophy book is full of important ideas and concepts and, that's it, ideas, concepts. But Vedanta, the teachings of Vedanta, properly understood, are not a collection of ideas. The teachings of Adwaita Vedanta are more like a roadmap. The purpose of a philosophy book is to impart these ideas to you. The purpose of Adwaita Vedanta books is not to impart ideas. We got too many ideas in our head, and it doesn't help. What we need is proper guidance for that process of self-inquiry. That process of self-inquiry has to be properly guided, and nowadays everyone has their phone with GPS and maps on the phone. But many years ago, when I was young, driving a car, there were no such things. You had a paper road map, and that roadmap was crucial to finding your way around complicated roads. Adwaita Vedanta teachings are more like that roadmap in that they guide you, but specifically, they guide you when you close your eyes and turn your attention within, what are you looking for? We need guidance. How to look, where to look, what to look for, and what not to get. Listen, some people get distracted. Some people will see colors or something when they close their eyes, and then they get focused on those colors. That's a distraction. So we need guidance in terms of how to properly turn our attention within for the sake of self-inquiry, which culminates in the discovery of your true nature. And just to loop back now to meditation, which you asked about, in order to use the roadmap of Vedanta for self-inquiry, your mind needs to be trained, well-trained. And a well-trained mind requires a lot of meditation. And by a lot of meditation, I mean years of meditation. Let me conclude with one more comment, and that is meditation is a learned skill, but it's a skill that's very subtle and takes a lot of effort to learn fully and completely. Think of a professional tennis player. Mm-hmm. That professional tennis player requires so much training before they step out on that court. And even after they reach a professional level, they continue to undergo that kind of training because it requires such a high level of skill to be a professional tennis player. And I would say to practice meditation requires a similar level of skill. Tell me, a typical professional tennis player has probably practiced for 10, 20 years or more. Mm-hmm. So how much time should you devote to practicing meditation? A lot.
Yeah, the basic classic ballerina has to study 9 years in the basic. Yes,
I believe that, certainly. So to learn those basic skills and then to move on to learn more advanced skills is crucial. And that's why that course in meditation I created has 42 lessons, because it's structured from introductory kind of practices, beginning practices, to middle practices, and then towards the end, more advanced practices. So if somebody really wants to learn meditation well, I know that you yourself have gone through that course, and I'm sure it's helped you. I think it can help others as well.
Yeah, it's one of the reasons of dubbing videos into Spanish, if just meditation, because the seekers, I recommended, Swami Tadatmananda course of meditation, and they say, but it is in English. I don't meditate and saw the subtitles, no. And okay. And I dub it into Spanish. I think it's very important. To me, it's very, very transcendental, and I think to others it's very important. Mm-hmm. Swamiji, thank you so much for your time. Please, if you let a message for our community of speaking Spanish seekers about the Adwaita Vedanta and this knowledge and this search for the truth, for our true nature. Please.
A final closing message. First of all, to congratulate you for the work that you're doing, serving your Spanish-speaking students and followers, very important. And then in a larger sense, to keep going. And as I said, to go forward using carefully selected resources. I think perhaps anything found on your website or on your YouTube channel or my YouTube channel, I think those are reliable resources. There are many others also, but be be discerning is one message I would like to share with you, with your community, because we live in a time and age where there are so many distractions, so many wrong paths, so many dead ends. I don't know if you have a similar expression in Spanish. I'm sure you do.
Yes.
So please be discerning and keep going, because the further you go along this path, the more rewarding you will find it, and the closer to your goal you will come.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you very much, Swamiji. Namaste.
Yeah.
It's
A great pleasure to meet you, Swamiji. Good.
Great pleasure to meet you. Bueno, muchas gracias, hermanos y hermanas. Despedimos este programa especial con mucho cariño para todos ustedes. Recuerden, por supuesto, suscribirse, darle a la campanita, activar las notificaciones para que les siga llegando nuestro contenido. Les voy a dejar también el link del Arsha Bodha Center, el link de la página web, y también les voy a dejar el link del canal de Swami Tadatmananda en YouTube para que lo visiten. Como dice, hay mucho material también por ver y por escuchar. Muchas gracias, namaste, y que tengan un buen día y una bendecida semana. Gracias.